Those are the first four notes from Beethoven's Fifth Symphony. Everyone knows those notes. That's famous. In this podcast episode of Sense of Wonder, I'm going to talk about a little bit about Beethoven's Fifth Symphony. But I'm very specific. I'm going to tell you what it means, to me anyway, or my interpretation of the symphony, what it's all about. But I'm specifically going to point out a 10-second portion of it that I think is the most important part of the whole thing. And it's a symphony with, I don't know how many instruments, 100 instruments. But there is that small 10-second portion where there's just a few notes played by a one instrument, an oboe. Really, really quite profound. So we're going to launch a little bit into this, and I'll give you some little tidbits of the symphony, but we're going to listen to that 10 seconds. And so let me tell you, I love classical music. Been listening to it all my life. And it's just like anything else. You know, the more you get involved in anything, the more you eventually derive from it. Hopefully, there's a growth that happens. And with classical music from the classical period, I think there was something really, really special that happened. It's almost like, for me, once the classical period ended, then we moved into the Romantic period, which is also wonderful. But for me, the classical period was really special. And Beethoven kind of was at the far end of the classical period, and then into the beginnings, he kind of was the threshold to where the Romantic period started. Well, anyway, enough of the history of classical music. But I think, how do I describe this? There is, when you describe a painting to a person, I mean, you can describe it, right? But there's no experience like seeing it and experiencing the painting yourself. That's the point. Words have is a language. Paintings, visual images like that, they're in a different language. And classical music is a different language. So there's only so far you can actually say to describe it. You have to experience it. And once you experience enough of it, things start to come into focus. It changes. It isn't just music. You start to perceive things that are meant to be perceived, but only through the medium. In this case, the classical music, right? You can only perceive things in a painting when you experience the painting, and you can only perceive what the composer is trying to say through the music. And with classical music, the composer has a breathtaking array of tools to try to get his or her message across. All the instruments, it's astonishing. It takes genius to wrangle all of that into something. And for me, Beethoven's Fifth is all about the experience of life, really. Sometimes it starts out with that four note dun 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 dun, right? Which is our introduction into life. It's dramatic, it's sharp, it just hits you really fast. It's like, and that's what happens to us. And at different points, it's very big and loud and profound, and at different points, it's very subtle, rhythmic, and multifaceted. And then, so let's get to the point where, and this is coming up, I'm going to try to time this just right. Coming up to the point where the oboe plays. And you see, the oboe is you, and the oboe is me. And you have just a few seconds of your life where you sing out and then it dies off. And that's that. And that last note is like a cry of almost a kind of sadness. So you have your little life, your one little note in this big, amazing, beautiful universe of life, music. You sing your little song. You have your little melody. You have your final note. And that's it. I think that's just remarkable. So what Beethoven did here was he was telling us a story, the story of the everything, the story of the universe, the story of the whole creation, the story of everything, and he puts in there that little 10-second oboe part where you get to sing your song. I think it's amazing. It blows my mind. This whole thing is a beautiful symphony. And you are an oboe. Sing your song. Sing out. Enjoy it. Never lose that sense of wonder.